Hello, hello, hello. Hello. That's not how I start my videos. Greetings and salutations, book lovers. My name is Samantha, and today we're going to be reading a series that I've heard a ton about. It's the series called the Green Creek series by TJ Klune. I've heard nothing but great things about the series. What really inspired this video was Jessica from Peace Love Books. She raves about this series, and I just was super tempted to read it. I've been struggling a little bit reading physical books. I've really been reaching for ebooks and just reading off my Kindle, listening to audiobooks. So I bought all 3 of the books from the series on an ebook, and we're just gonna read it. It's gonna be a good time. I'm gonna vlog a little bit. We'll see how I like it. I don't actually know a lot about the series. I know that it's about werewolves, and there's possibly a male-male romance, I'm pretty sure. Again, I don't really know much about it. I want to kind of go into it blind. TJ Klune also has another book out right now. I think it's called like The House on the Circular Sea or something like that. It seems like a really heavy fantasy book that is also really interesting, so I might listen to that on audio. I don't know. We will see. The entire series is called the Green Creek series, but it has 3 books in total right now. I believe the 4th book is coming out sometime soon, maybe this year. If it has a release date, I'll put it on the screen, but I know that it is going to be a continued series. Now, the first 3 are Wolfsong, Ravensong, and then Heartsong. So we're going to be reading all 3 of these this week, and I'll be filming my thoughts. Chandler, who is another one of my favorite booktubers of all time, also really loves the series, and on her Goodreads review, she put, "Imagine if Bella didn't suck and had chosen the werewolves and was also gay." I mean, if that's not intriguing, I don't know what is. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the updates I have right now. It's Saturday, so I don't have to work today. I'm really just planning on staying in my bed and reading and hopefully getting through some of these books. So I will update you guys when I have more thoughts. So I should be reading, but I recently bought Animal Crossing. I'm not getting anything done. All I want to do is play Animal Crossing all day, every day. I definitely played Animal Crossing as a kid. And I was debating getting the game because I didn't want to ruin my childhood, but I did it, and it is so good, and all I want to do is play it. So yeah, not getting a lot of reading done today. I have some thoughts, many thoughts, lots of thoughts. My sister is currently sitting on the bed right now playing some games on the phone, so if you hear anything, that's what those noises are. So sorry. Let's just get into it. You don't have to apologize, my love. You're fine. I'm about 70% into the book, and again, I have some thoughts. I am liking it so far, but there were some things I didn't like too much, which we'll get into. I ended up doing this video because this series is so highly raved about. Lacey, Jess, Chandler, they all love this series. So I went into Goodreads to read some of their reviews just as like to see what their thoughts were and if my thoughts were kind of aligning with what they were thinking. Let me just say that the Goodreads synopsis gives entirely too much away. Like I said, I'm about 70% into the book, and I read the synopsis on Goodreads, and the synopsis gives away at least 50% of the book. Like the first 50% is summarized in the synopsis, which I think is a little bit too much information, more information than you need going into reading the book. Anyways, I'll kind of summarize it for you guys myself. The story follows Ox, who, side note, I'm just an idiot, and the first couple times that I read his name, I read it as Oxy, and I was like, Oxy? His name is Oxy? No, because no, I'm just dumb. Follows Ox, who is such a sweet little bean. He's a little cinnamon roll, if you will. He lives in a small town called Green Creek. The Green Creek series, yeah, okay. Anyway, he's lived there his whole life with his mom, and he's always been curious about an abandoned house down the street. So down his street, there's an abandoned house that he's never seen anyone in. Occasionally, he'll see like cars parked out in the front, but he's never actually seen the people who live there. Fast forward, he's 16, and a family, the Bennett family, moves into this house, and he immediately starts to feel connected to them, especially their youngest brother, Joe. So that kind of sets the scene for you. His family, the Bennett family, are obviously werewolves, and though Ox himself is not a werewolf, he is a very special character, he immediately feels drawn to them, like he's a part of their family or their pack. So yes, that is what the story follows, and it is such a character-driven story. It does have a romance in it. The romance is so slow burn, like one of the slowest burn romances I've ever read. I do actually really like it. I like the connections that the characters have. I like that it's more than just the romance, and it is a very character-driven story. Ox is one of my favorite characters that I've read about. He's such, like I said, he's a sweet little bean. Very soft-spoken character, but he's very strong. He stands for what he believes in, and oh, I thoroughly enjoy reading about him. What else? Oh, yeah, I did write this down. Okay, the romance. Shall we talk about it? The romance follows Ox and Joe. That's not a spoiler. It's in the synopsis, although the synopsis gives way too much away. He meets Joe when he is 16 and Joe is 10. Okay, so there is an age gap there. It's a 6-year age gap, and I didn't know how I was gonna jive with that. I am not a huge fan of age gaps in books. I was very apprehensive going into the book when I realized that the relationship was going to be with the youngest brother. I'll just say I got over that very quick though, because it was never gross. I feel like it was tastefully done, and the romance was very gradual. It didn't start off as like a romantic relationship. Like I said, it's very slow burn. So I was immediately drawn to Ox because you later find out in the book that Ox is something that the werewolf community calls a tether. So a tether can be a person, a place, or a thing, and the tether basically grounds the supernatural person to the earth. Not just like werewolves, but there's witches and all kinds of other beings, but this tether kind of keeps their humanity. So you do find out that he is his tether and his mate, but at first it's really just a friendship. So that's what I really liked about it, is it was just a friendship, and the romance didn't grow until it was a little bit more of an appropriate age. So if you guys are worried about the age gap, I just want to say it was tastefully done. It didn't gross me out personally, and I'm not a huge fan of age gaps in books in general. The relationship was really awkward in the cutest way at first. So I actually really enjoyed their relationship and them together. So I'm going to put a little spoiler section on the screen. So I'm about to spoil this book a little bit. I'll put it on the screen if you want to skip through. Not much of a spoiler because it's listed in the synopsis, but anyways, I'm going to throw it on the screen anyways, just in case. The problem I had with their relationship is I do not understand why Joe left. I'm just going to say it. I don't understand why Joe left. The way he left and how he left. The way he left was just heartbreaking. I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. I thought like, oh, he's just gonna leave and he's going to realize his mistakes and he's gonna come back and they're gonna work things together and we're gonna be real mature about this. No. He's gone for 3 years. 3 years. I was like, what? Totally did not expect that because, again, I didn't read the synopsis and I just didn't understand it. A part of me understands it because that 3 years allows them to mature as characters and they're able to come back and find each other. And again, with that age gap they have, the time apart kind of sets the scene for Joe not to be seen as a little kid anymore and Ox to be a little bit more confident in himself. So when they come back together, it's not weird, that aspect. But I didn't like that he left. I'm just going to throw that out there. Did not like it whatsoever. So that was my little rant, and the only thing I didn't really love about the book so far, so I'll take the spoiler screen down. Why are you whispering?
Sorry, an operation.
Okay, love you.
Love you too. Okay. That was commercial break.
That was a commercial break. I love you too. I don't even remember what I was talking about. Oh, the last thing I will say is that Tanner, Chris, and Rico are the stars of this show. Okay, I love the 3 of them. They're absolutely hilarious. That's all I'm going to say. They're the stars of the show. Stars of the show. I'm going to finish the first book and start the second book tonight, and I will let you guys know if I have more thoughts. So far, I am really liking the series. There are some things that I'm not liking so far, which I hope will be resolved as the series progresses. Maybe I'll understand Joe's intent a little bit better for what he did. What else do I have to say? Oh, I started the audiobook for House on the Circulant Sea. I've been saying circulancy, but I've been listening to an audiobook and the audiobook narrator says ceruleancy. So I don't know if it's circulant, I don't know if it's cerulean. It's probably cerulean and I'm just pronouncing it wrong, but I've listened to that audiobook. I'm only about 5 chapters in. I do like it, but I don't love the narrator. Then he's made some interesting choices with his voices for the characters and I don't really like it, and he talks so slow. So slow. Even like on double speed, I'm listening to it on Scribd right now. Even on double speed, I feel like he just talks so slow. I'd have to pick up the physical book for this one, which I don't mind because I absolutely love the cover. I know that sounds so vain, but I wouldn't mind owning the physical book for this one. So I might pick up the physical book, but right now we're going to see if the audiobook gets a little bit better. It basically follows a social worker who goes to all of these orphanages for kids with special powers. In this world, kids who have special powers are definitely separated, and there's a bunch of laws and rules to sort of keep them contained and their powers contained. He goes to these houses and kind of just evaluates their living and the people who are watching them and if their powers are getting out of control. He doesn't really question what happens to the kids afterwards. He just goes in there, does his job, and that's it. It's like this new special mission where he has to go evaluate these 6 kids that are unlike any other kids that anyone has seen before. They all have very unique and special abilities, giving me a little bit of like X-Men vibes, you know, like a house that takes in a bunch of kids that have special powers and who don't fit in with society. That's the vibes it's giving me, and I like it a lot. So those are all my thoughts wrapped up, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Well, friends, Joe is definitely not a kid anymore. Okay then. There's that. I do like the way that Joe and Ox are handling their relationship. I do like that Ox didn't like immediately forgive Joe, and you can tell that he's different, and I'm really liking it, guys. I'm really liking it.
I do not know what's happening with this lighting right now, so I'm not wearing any makeup because just one of those days, you know? Just one of those days. I forgot to mention that so many people, when referring to this series, they make a lot of references to Twilight. And I wanted to kind of talk about that for a second. I definitely see the similarities of Twilight and the Green Creek series. I see the similarities because it's a small town and like a mysterious family lives in the woods and supernatural stuff happens. So I definitely see the similarities. I do think that Green Creek is better than Twilight. I think it has better characters and the characters aren't completely insufferable. I think it has better character development. I think it has a better overlying plot. I like the writing a lot better. The author does mention Twilight in this book, and he like totally trashes Twilight in the most humorous way, and I live for it. It is kind of like Twilight with all of the angst, but none of the ridiculousness like shining in the sun, you know? I don't want to feel like I'm completely trashing Twilight in comparison though, because I actually did like Twilight. I read it a long time ago. I think I was like in junior high and high school, and I'm not gonna lie, I definitely was that girl who read the entire series and went to see the movies and loved it. I went to like the midnight movie premiere with all of my friends and I watched the movie, and it was a whole vibe. Funny story, actually. My parents are pretty strict, so I was definitely not going to a midnight movie by myself when I was like 13, 14. I don't know how old I was when Twilight came out. I was definitely in junior high. So I wanted to see this movie so bad because I was obsessed. And my dad actually went with me and like my 5 group of friends, and we all watched the movie. So like, shout out to my dad who watched Twilight because his daughter wanted to watch it. Anyways, so funny. So I definitely am not trashing Twilight because I enjoyed it. Is it problematic? Yes. Is it trash? Yes. Do I care? No. I think like the Green Creek series, if you like Twilight, if you liked the Hunted series, I think it's called the Hunted series. I don't remember the author's name, but I'll put it on the screen. If you like those type of series as a kid, this is like that, but for adults. and with better writing and with better characters. I'm really liking it. It's taken a better turn. I was a little nervous at the beginning because I wasn't a huge fan of the way that the author wrote. Like, some things are in parentheses and some of the sentences are a little bit broken down. I also wasn't like the hugest fan of Joe and the age gap, but everything is just all coming together and it's wonderful. So I'm going to finish the next 2 books and I'll talk to you guys when I have more thoughts. Hopefully I like it just as much. This book hurts, but in the best way. I'm just feeling all of the emotions with this book. So I take back everything I said previously, and I completely 100% understand why Joe did what he did. The complexity of these characters is just perfect. The way the author has written these flawed but lovable characters is just amazing. Characters are really just trying to do what they think is best for their pack, for the people that they love. It kind of reminds me of that song in Frozen 2 where Anna is singing about doing the next right thing. You know, the song after like Olaf flutters away, singing about doing the next right thing. It's kind of like that. Like, the characters are just trying to do the right thing to keep their pack safe, and it's so beautiful, the love they have for each other. It's like midnight right now, and I wasn't planning on coming on camera because I look a mess, but I just finished Wolfsong, and it was beautiful. It was so, so beautiful. That ending was everything that I could have ever wanted. It was so well done, and everything just wrapped up nicely. I wasn't a huge fan of Joe. I think I said that in a previous update, but as the book progressed, I fell in love with him and I understood him a lot more. I love him, I love Ox, I love Tanner, I love Rico, I love Gordo. I love every single character in this book. So good, so good. I feel like I'm just gushing at this point because this book literally made me laugh, it made me cry. I'm so happy. Realistically, I should really give this book a 4-star because there were parts of the book that weren't my favorite, but emotionally, I don't care. I'm giving it a 5-star. I know that's real bold, but emotionally, this book wrecked me and I loved every bit of it. So I have to give it a 5-star. I rate books on pure enjoyment value, and I enjoyed the entire experience and I love all the characters and I just love the way it ended. I'm super obsessed with this story and I cannot wait to read the 2nd and 3rd book. So 5 stars. 5 stars. The best feeling in the entire world is finding a book that you cannot put down, that you want to read, and then you realize it's like 2 o'clock in the morning and you still want to read some more. So that's kind of how I feel about this book. Really loving it. I feel like I've given a lot of updates, so I'm gonna read the 2nd and 3rd book fairly quickly. Hopefully I'll get it done within the next couple of days, and then I will come back and let you guys know the rest of my thoughts for the series. I'm really excited and I hope the next 2 books are 5 stars as well. I don't know. 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm freaking crying over this book. The 2nd book and this last 20% of the book just has me bawling. What is this series doing to me? I love these characters so much and I cannot stop crying. So there's that. I didn't film me reading the rest of the series because the entire time I was bawling like a baby. Why did nobody tell me that I was gonna cry profusely? I feel attacked. Well, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I really need to stop doing this to myself, but here we are. I finished the Green Creek series. I probably should have waited until the morning to kind of like gather all my thoughts together, but I just finished the 3rd book and I have all of the emotions, so we need to talk about it right now. This series was divine, absolutely wonderful, one of my favorite things I've ever read, and it's probably ruined me for every other book that I'm going to read in the future. So I feel like I just said this in my last video about Lisa Kleypas, but I've just been reading a lot of good books recently, so that's so exciting. I try to whisper a little bit though because everybody in my house is sleeping like normal people. only I would be up at 2 o'clock filming a video talking about werewolves. Okay, so I feel like I have absolutely gushed and raved about Wolfsong, love Ox, love Joe, all the angst, totally here for it. So we're just going to jump right into the second book, Ravensong. Ravensong features Gordo and Max. That's not his name. That's not his name. This is why we don't film at 2 o'clock in the morning. Song features the relationship between Gordo and Mark. We meet both characters in the first book and they are so angsty. If you thought the first book was angsty, this one right here, all the angst that you could have. Okay, so obviously I'm going to be talking about the second book. I'm going to try to keep the spoilers to a minimum and we're just going to breeze through this a little bit. So the beginning of Ravensong really is kind of a recap of the first book and you get to see everything in Gordo's perspective, which I really liked. Like I mentioned, I didn't really read the synopsises for this book before going into them, so I thought that all the books were going to be in Ox's perspective, but I was really happy when we got different members of the pack, especially Gordo, because I absolutely fell in love with him in the first book. He's a bit of an asshole, but he's soft inside, and we just love that. So yes, the beginning of the book is sort of just a recap of what happened in the first book. In his perspective, you get to see how he got involved with the wolves, how he met Mark, how his father, Robert Livingstone, became who he was, and all the horrible stuff he did. And then you also get to see that 3-year gap of what happened in the first book when they left and made everyone mad, or at least they made me very mad. You get to see what happened in those 3 years, which I really appreciated that perspective because it sort of just tied everything together. Gordo and Mark. Gosh, the angst was there. Gordo is a witch, Mark is a werewolf, and they are mates. They sort of known each other for a really long time. They grew up with each other and fell in love when they were younger, but obviously all of the drama of the pack wars and everything kind of tore them apart. So you get to see bits and pieces of their previous relationship and then them making their way back to each other. So it's a very angsty, second chance, slow burn romance, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Again, Tanner, Chris, and Rico were the absolute stars of the show. They're so hilarious. I absolutely love Team Human. That's all I'm going to say about that. I probably could say so much about this book, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning and all I can think about is how hilarious this book was. What I loved about the writing was that there's so much humor in it. I feel like with fantasy books, we get very wrapped up in like the fantasy world. Well, this isn't fantasy, this is a paranormal book. But I feel like we usually get so wrapped up in the world, it's very unbelievable. And obviously, werewolves and witches are unbelievable. We know this, but something about like the humor and the character's personality just made it feel so relatable and so real. Like in the small things, like how the humans always joke about how the werewolves are like way too comfortable when they shift and they're like totally naked and they're way too comfortable being naked in front of each other. Just funny stuff like that. And there was this one scene when one of the werewolves gets hurt and another one of the werewolves like goes to like lick his wounds because they're both wolves, and you know that's what wolves do, I guess. So he licks his wounds to like heal him or make him feel better, and then when he becomes a human, he's like, I don't know why I think licking open wounds as a wolf is a good idea. It's disgusting. And I'm just like, I don't know why, but that scene like cracked me up. Just, they're so hilarious. I just loved everything about this book. The plot was superb. The writing was amazing. Loved everything about Gordo and Mark and their mystical moon magic. So 5 stars. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the third book, which I just finished literally 10 minutes ago, so it's fresh in my brain. This features Robbie and Kelly. I am so happy that Robbie got his own story because I loved him in the first book. It follows Robbie and Kelly, who are mates. About the fated mates trope just does it for me. I didn't realize that before, but it totally does for me. So if you guys know any more like fated mates or werewolf stories, definitely leave them down below. Tell me what they are. Tell me your favorites because that's all I want to read now. I definitely loved like the fated mates trope, and I loved how it was like a consistent thing. Like, yes, they're like mystical moon magic. They're meant to be together, but it's also like a choice. Like they chose each other, and there was something just so sweet and angsty about it all. So anyways, going on a tangent, this is Robbie and Kelly's story. Okay, so the beginning of this book, I was so confused. And I don't know if that was just me and me being dumb, but I was so confused. This isn't a spoiler or anything. I think it's actually really important knowing going into the third book because it just makes everything make much more sense. So the beginning of the book, it is written and seems like they are flashbacks. And although obviously there are bits and pieces of flashbacks, like the parts where Robbie is younger and you get to see what happened to his mom and how he became a part of Alpha, what's that Alpha's name? The big bad Alpha, Alpha Hughes, I think is her name. I don't know. See his past and him as a child and what happened to him and his mom. Those are flashbacks. Everything else you think are flashbacks before his time at Green Creek, but no. The beginning of the book is present day. So that makes everything very, very, very confusing. For the first 20% of the book, I had no idea what was going on. Like, let's be honest. So a lot happens to our dear friend Robbie, and he doesn't deserve any of it. Obviously, we know that Robert Livingstone is on an evil, evil vengeance, and he basically takes Robbie, and you get to see what happens to him, how he makes his way back to Green Creek, and how he forms a bond all over again with his original pack and with his mate Kelly. I don't say anything else because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys, and although it does skip a significant amount of time, you do get to still see those sweet moments between Robbie and Kelly. It's not a completely developed relationship, and you'll understand why when you get more into the book. If you're confused in the beginning, I was too. It's okay, just keep pushing through it. It's totally fine. Robbie and Kelly were so sweet. I love them together. Kelly is asexual, which I thought was really cool because I don't think I've ever read a book that the main character identifies as asexual. So that was really great representation. I know in the book it does reference that werewolves are gender fluid, but Kelly specifically identifies as asexual. So there is pretty low steam because of that. Not as much steam as there is in the first and second book, but you still get all the cuteness and all the angst, and I absolutely loved every single bit of it. The book had a different tone to it because so much has happened that kind of tore the pack together, and this book was like a cathartic experience, like the pack sort of just forming their bond all over again and healing from all the drama and craziness with the hunters and with the witches and with the packs and with all this craziness, and them just healing from it. So it was definitely a different tone. I loved it nonetheless. This book ate 4 stars. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved it just as much as the first and second book, but like I said, the first 20% of the book, I was so confused. Like, I literally thought I skipped a book or something. I was just so confused, and that probably is just me and my reading comprehension, but I rate books on enjoyment, and the first 20%, I was just super confused. So this got a 4-star, but I still really loved the book. The thing I regret about starting this series is I really should have waited until the 4th book. Brother Song does not come out until October, and I can't wait until then. I can't even imagine people who started this book when it first came out. Like, y'all have been waiting a long time, and that's just heartbreaking. I can't wait till October. I need it to come out right now. So in a nutshell, this series was great. 10 out of 10, would recommend, would read again. This isn't a part of the series, but it is by TJ Klune, and that is The House on the Cerulean Sea. We're gonna say cerulean because that's how the narrator pronounced it, but I think it's circulan. I'm probably wrong. Amazing fantasy book. I highly recommend. It's considered an adult fantasy, and I haven't been jiving with fantasy books recently. I don't know what it is. I've just really been gravitating to strictly romance books, but something about this book in particular really did it for me. I think it's just TJ Klune's writing. I absolutely love the characters he creates, and this book was no different. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So there we have it. I read the entire Green Creek series, and I am obsessed. So happy that I read this book. I'm gonna wrap this up now because I feel like I've been blabbing for so long. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the world to me. I hope you are all staying happy and healthy, and I'll see you guys next time.